Magic mirror in my hand, who are the fairest listeners in the land? Oh, hi, you. I'm Snow, and this is Snow Scary Adventures. So, if you're into the spooky, the macabre, or just plain mysterious, please subscribe, turn on your notifications so that you could see more of my videos or listen to more of the podcasts. In this episode, it's actually the second part of Micah and the Magic Castle. So, enjoy the show. So, I know you said that a lot of people experience things there.
Oh
Is
yeah,
that right?
yeah. So kind of like what I was saying about the Houdini
The Houdini
seance room.
one. Uh-huh.
Every time I bring a group in, someone feels something. It's usually a woman, doesn't have to be, but it usually is. If you go, there's a mirror in the Houdini seance
That's
room.
already
Yeah,
creepy.
it's super creepy. Yeah, a mirror in a seance room in the Magic Castle. That's like three levels of creepiness. That's creepy cubed.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the first time they set it up, they renovate it and they always change it. And so there was this new mirror. It was new to me, and my guest said to me, "Who's in the mirror?"
Oh no.
Yeah. And if you go, Snow, I hope you do. I hope one, I hope you go to the Magic Castle, and two, I hope you go on a night where the Houdini seance room is available, even if you don't get to attend a formal
At least
seance.
just to
Sometimes
walk in.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can just walk in and check out the mirror, and you'll find out what I'm talking about. And this woman saw it, and I didn't, and
That
it's
is
still kind of
creepy. That is
yeah,
trippy. And that's what kind
yeah.
of credits it more because you're like, I didn't say anything. Oh my
Right. I didn't
God.
see, yeah,
Yeah.
and I did tours there and I saw
Yeah.
nothing. So if you go, Snow, let me know if you see something in the mirror, and if so, what you see. I would be fascinated to find out what you see
Oh
in the
gosh.
mirror.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
okay, so funny not shared fact. I think you'll probably be the first person that I'll say this out loud to.
Oh, is this an exclusive?
This is an
Oh,
exclusive.
this is exciting.
So I didn't know what scrying was until
Yeah.
maybe the last 10 years of my life. I understood what it was. But when I was a kid, I would do it all the time.
So you didn't know what it was, but you were doing it without knowing what it was.
Yeah. So I would always
Interesting.
start off by like when I was little, really little. I mean, like starting like 4 or 5 years old. We used to have this really big mirror in the middle at the very end of the hallway.
Yeah.
Um, and like in between two last bedrooms at the end of the hallway kind of thing. And a huge mirror. And I would always like in the morning, I would be getting myself ready and I'd always check myself in the mirror. But when I would be waiting for a long time for everybody else to be ready, I would stare at myself in the mirror until I'd see things start to move behind me. And then
Oh,
eventually there were times that I would see my face change. And I know that they say that that's like psychological, that your mind gets bored, so it changes your face. And I'm all
mhm.
like, it doesn't happen for everybody though, so I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, but when I was really little, I mean, I remember like early fall mornings, getting ready for school, it's still dark outside,
Sure.
staring down this mirror, everything's dark behind me, and I start seeing things just moving behind me, and I'm not thinking anything of it.
Wow. Now, does that still happen to you?
I haven't done it. I haven't done it
Okay. Okay.
yeah, consciously yet because I think now that I know, I'm like maybe I need to be careful about what I do. Maybe
Yeah. Yeah.
a little more understanding. But
Sure.
I have been curious about doing it. I have considered getting myself a ball to see if I'd be able to do it.
Nice.
But yeah, I think it's funny because yeah, it has to do with the mirror, and I'm
Yeah.
attracted to mirrors, like no lie. Um, I can sense things in mirrors. Um,
Like what?
okay, so this is gonna be a recent. It's kind of heavy. I'm not
Oh
trying
boy.
to be heavy, guys, but it is what really happened. So my father passed away 2 years ago.
Oh,
In a
I'm
week it'll be
very
2 weeks.
sorry. Oh,
Thank
I'm
you.
very
I
sorry.
know it's like somebody told me last time. It's a life thing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's a Barry from my last interview. He said that when he lost his mom. He said the same thing. It's a life thing. Like I
Right.
was just like, you
Yeah.
know what? I feel like that's kind of an easier way to accept it. It's a life thing. It's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and when he was passing, I was there. I was with him when he was sick in his home, and he had a small, thin hallway. At the end of the hallway, across from it in the living room was a mirror that would face looking down the hallway. So you could look into the mirror and look into the hallway.
Ooh. Okay.
And when my dad was passing, I kept getting this sense that his brother, who had already passed years ago,
Your
was
uncle.
walking up and down the hallway. Yeah.
Okay.
Like I
Oh, I'm sorry.
kept
Was walking up and down the hallway.
yeah, like I kept feeling his presence. And I'd keep looking in the mirror and like with my mind's eye, I could see him standing in the hallway. But he wasn't really. It was interesting. But my first
Wow.
my thought process was always to look at the mirror, not to
Yeah.
look behind me, to always look in the mirror. But yeah,
Interesting.
it was
But
interesting.
it's been a while since you have experienced that.
Yeah, I haven't really, I guess, found a reason to look in the mirrors for
Yeah.
answers. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I do know that sometimes I'll be drawn to certain mirrors and I find it
Mhm.
interesting. I'll just kind of like stare at them for a little bit. And I mean, from what I understand, they can be portals, you know?
Yeah.
Um, I think even more so now because I know once upon a time ago when mirrors were created, they were created with silver. And I feel
Yeah.
like that kind of helped keep things up at bay, if that makes sense.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
now like it's not so much. So I do feel like screens and mirrors do have ability of transferring energy
Yeah.
any kind if you're not careful. So if I start feeling uneasy, I will sage and pray over a mirror or a screen and I'll
Uh-huh.
be like, yep, that's not coming in.
Yeah.
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 But yeah, I do consider them like very easily portals and things like that. So if I walk into a room with a lot of mirrors, it'll immediately dun, 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 like you'll see me like, what's happening?
Yeah. Like
It
a
feels
ping pong.
busy.
So have you been in like a hall of mirrors or house of mirrors? Have you ever done
Oh,
that?
like at a theme park or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, you know what? I just helped guide my kid through one, but I wasn't in it.
Okay.
Like it was like a window that you could see
Oh,
them in. So I was just kind of
okay.
helping them, but I didn't actually step into one. I don't know how I would do with stepping into one. Again, like if I go into just a room that has multiple mirrors, I'm always like, are they facing each other? What's going on? Okay, what's what's my situation
Yeah.
here? Yeah,
Yeah.
but otherwise, like, yeah. But it is really funny. Like every mirror that I see, I get like drawn to. And especially like if they're older mirrors, I'm like, I want it. Like, like I want it. If somebody has like a
Sure.
garage sale or they're like, oh, I'm just gonna give this away. If it's a mirror, I want it. Like even if I don't know where I'm
Yeah.
gonna put it, I want it. Like it's really interesting. But if I'm in somebody else's house and they have a lot of mirrors, I'm like, no, why? It's really
Okay. All
funny. Like
right.
if I feel like I have control over it, I'm okay with it. But if somebody else
Yeah.
put it up, I don't know what's going on. So
Got it.
it's really weird. Um, but then yeah, I think I've just thrown people off. And I find it funny because there is kind of like a weird, a strange I don't believe in coincidences, but a strange
Yeah.
similarity to the fact that I do like Snow White.
You okay? Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, the whole story is about a woman who's, her magic comes from the mirror, and she's the nemesis of the princess. You know what I mean? So I
Sure.
just kind of
Sure.
find it interesting because, again, like I said, I like mirrors. I'm attracted to them, but if there's somebody
Yeah.
else's, I don't like them.
Okay.
So
All right.
it is weird. It's just a weird thing that I just put together right now. I was like, oh, that's a little weird.
But if they take them out of their house, put them on the front yard and sell them in a garage sale, then you are
Then I want it.
then you're
Yeah.
excited. Then you want it. Okay, got it. Okay. So there's a protocol here that has to be
Yeah.
followed.
I
Okay.
don't know if it's maybe because I feel like in their home, I don't know the energy that they had in their home.
Yeah.
And then if it's something I can cleanse and bring, like the any mirrors that I brought home, I've cleansed them, especially if they're an old mirror. Like I've done a
Okay.
cleansing with them, anointed
Got it.
them, and yeah. So yeah, I find it interesting. And again, not many people know that. So you're one of
It's an
the
exclusive.
you literally just got that out of me.
It's a snow exclusive, listeners.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
definitely.
Interesting. So, like when you're driving and you're looking into the rear view mirror,
Oh, huh. Sometimes I feel things and I have to
really?
tell them to leave because I feel like
Yeah.
somebody wants to like hitch a ride. Like I'll feel eyes on me. You know, like when you can see somebody,
Yeah.
like your passenger behind you, and you can feel their eyes when they're looking at you in the mirror.
Yeah.
I feel that, and I'll
Yeah.
and I'll have to like immediately like say out loud, like, "Nope, you're not following me home. Please get out," or things like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and it's just yeah, just weird, a weird feeling, but it's not all the time. Definitely not
Really?
all the time, but it has
Okay.
happened.
It has
Uh,
happened.
yeah, more times than I can count,
Yeah.
but not all the time. Yeah.
Sometimes I see like flashing lights in the rear view, like red and blue, and I'm like, no, don't follow me. Leave me alone. You will not enter my space.
As
Leave
long
me
as they're not
alone.
saying anything, as long as they're
Right.
not telling you
Well,
to do anything, not telling you to stop or anything, that
right.
I think
Well,
you're fine. I think you're
yeah.
fine.
Pull over. I'm like, this is a very aggressive entity, and I do not want them entering. And then I sage, I don't think you should sage and drive. But yeah, yeah, I hear you. I hear
We're
you.
staging.
Yeah, exactly. No saging. Yeah,
Why is it smoky in your car, sir? It's
right.
the
Yeah, well, how's that for irony? Weed is okay, but were you saging and driving? Were you saging and driving? Yeah.
age.
Wow, that's the world
How
we
dare
live
you be
in.
enlightened in
So,
this moment?
yeah, exactly.
That's
Oh
great.
man, a
So,
snow
okay.
exclusive. Yeah.
I'm very curious though. What brought you into the world of magic? I feel like I need to ask this.
Oh, thank you. Try to get girls to notice me. One day it will work, Snow. Hasn't yet, but no, I'm betting. I see a lot of overlap in people who are very spiritual or into the supernatural at all with magicians. So here's a good example. What got you into this? And I don't mean to put an inaccurate label on it, but it sounds much like kind of like a supernatural
Mhm.
side to Christianity, and that might be the wrong label. But do you see what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah.
How did you how did you get into that?
My dad. My
Your dad.
my dad. Yeah.
Okay.
When I was little, I would see things and my dad would see things too. My dad would
Okay.
see apparitions as a grown adult. And he would call them out. And then
Interesting.
I would
And
see a few
your dad
too.
was Christian as well?
Yeah, very
Okay.
much so. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Um, so I found it very interesting because here's one man who, he was very much chasing Christ's grace. You know what I mean? Like that was
Mhm.
his goal. His goal wasn't man. His goal was spiritual. His
Yeah.
spiritual journey. And he was so content with himself, like alone, and not many people are. And I know that
Yeah.
like I find more peace when I'm alone too. So I'm like, maybe there's a correlation. I know I'm definitely his daughter. He loved what like anything about mystery. He got me into X-Files.
Ah,
He got me into
yeah.
Tales of the Crypt. So obviously spooky stuff.
Yeah.
Like he was my my guide in that, if that makes sense. Like he had that
It
little
does.
nudge that made me like, yes, I'm curious. I want to know. Like.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's pretty much what led me to it. It
And
really
if
was just his curiosity became mine too.
he was kind of your inspiration, even
Mhm.
on a certain level, maybe your mentor into this.
Somewhat, you know what? It was we would have so many conversations. I wish I could remember them all. It's one of those moments
Yeah.
where like, goodness, I wish I could rewind that.
Sure. Yeah.
But we would have multiple conversations for hours, not even realizing hours had passed about
Yeah.
the what ifs and the whys and the wows of spirituality.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's great. And if you had to give an age when you were aware of this, oh, I'm really digging this. I'm really connecting with it. If you had to guess an age, about how old were you when you were conscious that this was happening for you?
Hmm. Maybe about 6.
Okay, yeah, all right, yeah.
Hmm.
So that's a very similar story to just about any magician you'll talk to. Just maybe packaged slightly differently, but what's inside is more or less the same. So I had an uncle who loved magic, and I was fascinated by the magic tricks he would show me, and he would carry around a briefcase full of magic tricks. And for a long time, I had a briefcase because I wanted to be like him as a magician. And almost all, it's very Freudian. Almost all magicians will say, well, I started around 6 to 8 years old. They all say,
Hmm.
and when I say all, I'm exaggerating, but not by much. There are a lot of magicians and professional artists who started at about that age, which is why I was wondering about when it hit you, when you were conscious of it,
Hmm.
because that's about when I was too. I got my first book when I was about 8 years old, and from my grandfather, and so there was a family influence, not unlike you and your dad.
Hmm.
And everything you just said, you were interested in the mysteries and that kind of thing. Magic is just another way of expressing it.
Hmm.
So everything you described could very easily be transcribed into my life, and it would still match. So that's very interesting you shared that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm like just this is amazing. I was like, I was so excited when you messaged me and you were like, I'm a magician. And I was like, what? Hey.
Oh, it's a pleasure. No, this is so cool. This is a wonderful thing you're doing for your fans. And I really, I think that people will feel better after listening to you. So thank you for doing this.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope for it to be more of a conversation of everybody's, of a spiritual journey, but also like, I love the conversations about all the aha moments too. And some people just
Oh,
don't
yeah.
understand that they had the aha moment until we speak. And they're like, oh, that's what that was.
Yeah.
And it's cool. And it's really cool.
Yeah.
Um, just for the record, I think you'd get a kick out of this, but my dad would have loved you. He loved
Ah,
trying card tricks. He used to do card
oh,
tricks.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
just for the fun
awesome.
of it. It was literally one of those things he'd keep in his back pocket just to keep other kids entertained sometimes. It was so cute.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I wish I could have met him. He
Yeah.
sounds like a super cool guy.
Yeah, he's super cool. So you said so you started with him with your own little briefcase.
Yeah, I had a little briefcase. Yeah. And now, not unlike your dad, most of my act is just one deck of cards. That's what I focus on.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So when I did get to perform at the Magic Castle, I also get to perform at a place called Black Rabbit Rose in Hollywood. It's an open magic club for anybody, tourists, anybody. It's not invitation only. Anybody can go. I have one deck of cards in my back pocket, kind of like your dad, and
Mhm.
that's what I use the entire set. So yeah, I did have that briefcase full of little magic tricks, but if I can. I try to be efficient and I just focus on that one deck, and it is possible. Although I've been experimenting with magic tricks with the tarot. I don't know how you feel about that,
Magic
but as you
tricks
know,
with tarot. That's interesting.
yeah. But yeah, there are a lot of there's lots of Christian symbolism in the tarot. Jung had a
Hmm.
lot to say about it. There's some Judaic symbolism as well, but also a lot of universal stuff. So, how do you, Snow? How do you feel about the tarot?
Honestly, I feel like anything else, it's just another tool of divination.
Yep.
Again, I've been doing this whole deep dive into anything and everything that has to do with spirituality and Christianity, and where did things separate us, which was a big no-no too.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other story. But like,
Yeah.
where did the bad come from enlightenment? I didn't understand it,
Mm.
And one of the big things I remember, literally one of the very last long conversations I had with my dad was and it was actually his last birthday. Him and I were talking about it.
Oh wow.
Um I said, I have a hard time believing that God doesn't come to people in different ways. And my dad said, well, why do you think so? And I was just like, do you really think that it's okay for people to say that our faith is mythological? Do you
Hmm.
want that? I feel like that's not right when you're saying it about somebody else's faith. And
Yeah.
he was like, huh. And he just kind of, I get it. He just
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
like, and I was just all, and it was like, it came like out of nowhere. And then when I said it, it was instead of any kind of pushback or anything, it was very much like, okay, you
Uh-huh.
know, and
Yeah.
because my thought process was we all have our opportunity to see God and whatever it is you want to say is God,
Hmm.
um, as far as, the all powerful, the light, the main source, so I feel like there are obviously, other deities, um, and I believe that, in a weird way that's I know that people get thrown off by this, but I always like to quote this. If the Ten Commandments said that he was jealous of other gods, he wouldn't be jealous if there were no other gods. Um,
Oh, interesting. So
um,
you're taking that literally. So you do say that there could be other deities. Am I hearing this correctly?
yeah, and I
Got
feel
it.
like there's one main, like in any theological background, you're gonna find, and I call them theology. I don't call them mythology, because of that. Like I said, I don't like the
Yeah.
idea of that. Um, I mean, you've got Zeus and you've got Jupiter and you've got, you know what I mean? You've got all these big shots.
Yeah.
Why? And then in a deeper dive, I found out that Judaism itself used to be and used to be polytheistic before it was monotheistic.
Mhm.
So it makes me think like, well, okay, so is it because we're all acknowledging that there's one big guy, And then
Uh-huh.
after that, there's others that kind of follow. And I feel like that's no other way of saying, God and his archangels are no different than like Zeus and the rest of the gods. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like that's just kind of how it's just how we perceive it rather than, because of where we were socially and what we saw.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what molded a lot of that.
Yeah.
Um, so, and I know that people will completely like start bashing me for saying that as a Christian, but that's really what I like what I see, And I see
Yeah.
that because I'd rather find the similarities and bring us together than find the differences and keep pushing us apart. I
Sure.
just don't see the point in that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I feel like that's very much what Christ would have wanted me to do. That's what he preached. Like it's all of us come together, Jews or Gentiles. He was talking about everybody, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So that's just one of those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
And most, well, I don't know about most, but many religions, Christianity included, as you know, already starts off with a Trinity.
uh-huh. That's what
Um,
I was gonna say too. There's
yeah.
a Holy Trinity was never just yeah, it was never just Christian. Like a Holy
Yeah.
Trinity, there's a Trinity symbols in Gaelic, there's Trinity symbols
Yep.
in like Nordic in so many ways because there was always that top three. And
Yeah.
usually it was a father, mother, son, which was
Yes.
interesting to me because apparently, if you really dive into the Bible, the mother gets removed.
Mm.
It's father, mother, son, as in we will make them in our image. And people don't understand that.
Yeah.
And then the mother gets removed, and those were your Asherah poles. That's who she was.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. I know I throw people off because I'm like, I wanted to learn, and now I'm throwing people off. But this is why I
Sure.
say it's faith that matters. So
Sure.
stop, trying to judge people on how they find their faith, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Especially if they're harming no one.
exactly. That's the big
And
one.
yeah, that
Yeah.
is a big one. And that's shared by so many religions.
Hmm.
So many. Oh, well, good for you. Yeah, good luck with that. Is it like relatives who are giving you static about this?
Mostly, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
okay. It is what it is. I keep myself. I love at a distance. We'll just leave it that way. I
Yeah.
think it's better. It's safer sometimes. I'm like,
Sure.
and I get Bible pounded a lot, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah,
And I'll have to I hit them back with the Bible and the history behind that, like the actual history, not just the history that we're being persuaded as the history of it.
yeah,
Um, and they don't like it, but it's okay.
yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
all like, I'm gonna teach you if you want to teach me. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure,
so I
sure.
see it. There should be an open conversation. And if you don't like it, and if you start closing it out because you don't want to be open, then you're not approaching this for the right reasons.
Yeah, yeah.
That's my view. Yeah.
It's what you're describing reminds me of one of my favorite stories. There was oh, brace yourselves. There was a black guy who was cast as Jesus Christ in Jesus Christ Superstar.
That's
And
amazing though.
yeah, well, I mean, he was from the Middle East, right? So
Yeah, exactly. He wasn't
so,
white.
but right, right. So, but a lot of people, it reminds me of some of your relatives. A lot of people were literally up in arms. They were picketing. They were holding
Mm.
signs outside the theater. And a journalist interviewed the actor and said, "What do you think about all these protesters?" And the actor said, "I forgive them." That's method. That's called method acting.
That's the
That's
best
called
method I
commit.
can understand.
Yeah, yeah. That's called commitment to the
Forgive
character.
them
And
for they know not what they do.
for they forgive them for they know not what they do. And I was like, when I was reading it, I was drinking something, and I went, I was like, oh, that's the best quote in religious history.
Oh
So
yeah.
anyway, it reminds me a little bit of you and your trials and tribulations with your relatives. When people see something that challenges their beliefs that they've been holding for generations, it
Mhm.
really makes it difficult for them to listen. And then they miss out on a cool musical. So
Right?
there you,
Oh my God, I
yeah,
love Jesus Christ Superstar. That is
yeah,
one of my favorites.
it's an amazing show.
I feel like when it comes down to it, it's definitely a hard for people to understand that what we've accepted wasn't normal to begin with.
Hmm.
And it comes to just a lot of things, and I feel like even when it just comes to magic, I mean, for a very long time with me growing up, like I would get this like, oh well, when they're that good, they must have a deal with the devil and all this stuff. And I'm like, do you hear yourself? You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
I'd look at them like, really? Really?
yeah.
And for some part I'd be like, maybe. Like sometimes you'd see some of them and you'd kind of get that little eerie feeling and you'd be like, okay, well maybe that guy, but not all of
Maybe
them.
that guy.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Maybe David Blaine, but who? Yeah. Got it.
That's the
Okay.
one my mom would freak out with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's got that weird look and you don't know what he's thinking. And yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you
He
don't
freaks
know if
people
it's
out.
his lack of meds, lack of caffeine, or lack of Jesus. We don't
Right.
know.
Or too many meds. Yeah. It's a mystery
Hmm.
that he's a mysterious man. Yeah.
But such is the art.
This is true. This
That's
is
what it's
true.
supposed to be.
Yeah. 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 That's true. That's
How do
true.
you feel about those what are they called? The revealing a magician's secrets shows?
Oh yeah, like back in the 90s when Fox
Yeah.
put on those
I mean, they
specials.
were
Yeah.
awesome, but how did
Yeah.
you feel
I,
about those?
I watched them too, and I will say everything I saw was an expose of stage illusions, which I
Hmm.
couldn't afford anyway. So there were some magicians who did perform those specific illusions, and they were not happy for obvious reasons.
Hmm.
But in a way, it got more people interested in magic. It, for lack of a better term, it exposed more people to magic. And a lot of
Hmm.
people would say that it actually did magic a favor. More people would be interested in going to see a show.
Watch it. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
because maybe
So
it was because of that weird stigma that I was telling you about. Maybe it was more than just my family thinking,
yeah.
oh, these are bad people doing bad things. You know what I mean? Because I
Right.
know, I
Yeah.
know after a lot of that, my mom was like, oh, that's amazing. Oh my God, that's so cool. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Later.
Yeah.
But before that, she was not.
Oh, really? So
So she's an
she was
idea.
suspicious.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
So I wonder if
Yeah.
maybe that's how it helped because it was just like, no, this is just like literally the smoke and mirrors. It's literally an illusion that's created for you to feel what you feel or see what you see, and I just think maybe that's where it helped. I don't know.
That's a very good point. But so if people see behind the curtain, they don't have to be afraid of it anymore if they
It's
were
like
in the first place.
the Wizard of
Not
Oz. Yep.
But the
Hmm.
Wizard of Oz effect. You're absolutely right. And then there's another side to that coin where when people uh, think they figured out what I've done, and their explanation is much cooler than what I actually did. And and sometimes your husband, the skeptic, and he'll say, "Well, this is how you do it because I saw Rain Man. First of all, you memorize the cards and you're counting the cards, and you have to." And like some people have said this to me,
And
which
you're
is
like,
much
wow, I want
cooler.
to be that smart.
I wish I were that smart. I wish I were that smart. And sometimes I'll just say, yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. Let them think I was that smart because that's cooler than what I actually did. So
That's
you
cool.
bring up a very interesting point. People have very firm beliefs about how it's done, and when they see behind the curtain, sometimes they just breathe a collective sigh of relief.
Hmm.
I think that's a good point. What you said, that might have been one of the reasons why the specials actually helped.
What's your favorite trick?
Ah,
I had to ask. I had to ask.
yeah.
I'm with a magician. I gotta ask these questions.
Well, I will say what I'm experimenting with now is this trick with the tarot cards,
Oh yeah.
where, yeah, the volunteer becomes so essentially there are at least three people involved: myself, a volunteer, and then a second volunteer. So volunteer number one uh, is going to be the reader,
Hmm.
okay? And then volunteer number two is going to be what they might call the querent, or whatever term you want to use.
Hmm.
But after the querent shuffles the tarot cards, as they often would,
Hmm.
the querent chooses one card and looks at it. But volunteer number one, the reader, has to give volunteer number two, the querent, a reading of that tarot card without seeing it.
That's
And
interesting.
yeah, and it was inspired by a friend of mine named Claire. So I called it clairvoyance for obvious reasons.
That's
And
adorable.
yeah, thank you. And I hope she finds that adorable as well. But I've been doing it ever since, and it's fascinating to see what people say and how people react, and the readings and this is all impromptu. It's not set up. So the reader doesn't know that she's going to be a reader until I ask her, can you please give a reading to the querent about the card that the querent shows from the shuffle deck, but you can't see the card? And they've been getting it. And it's just fascinating to literally sit back and watch this unfold. So
That's all,
right now,
that's completely mystical itself in so many
thank you.
ways. Because I feel
Yeah,
like you're allowing the trick to happen, but at the same time, there's a little deeper dive into some divinity at the same time, and these people probably don't even realize that they have it. It's like a natural pull. That's cool.
it really is.
And
Yeah.
maybe it's
And
because they're letting themselves, like, like
mhm,
hypnotists, like you have to kind of let yourself go, right? In order for it to work. So maybe
right.
it's the whole point. It's like you're putting faith into the magician.
Mhm,
And, in that moment, since you don't feel like the pressure's on you, the pressure's on the magician. I'm just here,
right. Yeah,
and it
exactly. Exactly.
happens and it winds up being that's amazing.
Thank you. I hope you get to see it. I hope you get to be a part of it one day. I hope we can meet up and freak your husband out. I don't know. But but yeah, I hope you get to see it one day. But right now that's what I'm working on, and I've really been enjoying that lately.
That's
Yeah,
amazing. That's
thank you.
amazing.
Do you
So
have a favorite trick
I
that you've seen? Yeah.
not really.
Okay.
I like them all. If it
All
makes me
right,
go
fair
woo,
enough. Yeah,
yeah. I not. I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe like I'm for the classics. The whole
sure.
cut them in half kind of thing. Those are interesting to
Yeah,
me. But we
yeah.
start learning how those are done, so it's not too bad.
Right,
But
right.
yeah, I don't know. I honestly, the more you can make me go, the more I love it. Like, so it's any
Yeah,
new, yeah.
sure,
I'm
sure.
sure, I'm sure your tarot, uh, your clairvoyance will be without that. Just the thought of it is amazing. That's
Thank you.
trippy to me. That's an awesome
Thank
thought
you.
process too. I know I mean, that takes a lot of like engineering mentally. So good job.
Thank you. Yes, that's a very good way of putting it. Mental engineering. Thank you. Yeah, I hope you get to be a part of it someday. I will say if we have to, I don't know if we have time. How are we doing on time, Snow?
You have as much time as you want.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, pull out those sleeping bags. We're going to be talking all night. But I will tell you my favorite trick that I've ever seen performed. There was a magician named the Amazing Jonathan, and I saw this on a special one night. I wish I could have been there live, but it was still cool to see it on TV. He was in this. He was a very popular magician, very successful. So he was selling out arenas. And there was this one night he was in such an arena, and he was on stage, and he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to try to read someone's mind in the audience. If you would like to try this experiment with me, stand up." Well, huge arena, as you can imagine, a ton of people stand up. They want to know
Mhm.
what's going to happen, what's going to go down. And he tries to look past the floodlights. I'm sure he was blind. This was probably in LA, so he
One
couldn't
of
see
those,
a thing.
yeah.
Yeah, one of those things that we talked about. So I'm amazed he saw anybody. But he looks past the floodlights and he says, "Sir, I'm not getting a vibe here, but I appreciate your interest. You can have a seat, ma'am. I'm not getting a connection, but I appreciate you being here. You can have a seat." Somehow he sees a woman in the balcony past the floodlights. He sees her and he says, "Ma'am, I'm getting a connection here. Would you like to try this experiment with me?" And the woman says, "Sure." And he says, "Okay, everyone else, thank you so much for your interest. You can sit down, ma'am, if you wouldn't mind. Stay standing, especially so I can see you a little better, especially from this distance. I'm going to ask you some questions, and don't give me extra information, but if I'm right, just
Yes
let
or
me
no?
know."
Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Yes or no. And he says, "You live in Los Angeles?" And she says, "Yes." And he says, "Okay, you've been living in Los Angeles for 5 years?" And she said, "Six. That's really close." He says,
Hmm.
"Okay, do you have a dog?" She says, "Yes." And he says, the dog's name is Sparky." She says, I got him from the pound and I named him Sparky. This is amazing." He says, "Okay, there's a glint on your finger. Is that a wedding ring?" "Yes." So you're married?" "Yes." "Okay, your husband, is he like a tall guy, like about 6 feet?" "Yeah, he's 6'3". "Yes, he's tall." "Okay. Your
Hmm.
husband, is he blonde?" "Yes." "Your husband, is he in the entertainment industry?" "Yes." Is your husband a magician?" "Yes." "Am I your husband?" "Yes." Yes. And once again, I was watching this and I was best thing I've ever seen in my life. That's my favorite trick I've ever seen
That's
performed. That
adorable. I love it.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love it. I love when it's witty. That's the best
Right.
way to
That was
keep
certainly
it
witty.
moving. I love it.
Yeah, yeah,
Reminds me of like
yeah,
Abbott and Costello are my favorites. Okay, so
yeah.
yes, that's the why.
It harkens back to that.
Yeah,
Definitely,
and
definitely.
a lot
Yeah.
of that. Yes. Oh, I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Um, all right, so I'm gonna go ahead and just ask you, I guess. Go ahead and just plug anything you want to plug. Right now is the time.
Oh, thank you. Very kind of you. Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, if people are still listening to me yak, there's a show called The Night of the Raven, and it's a variety show honoring Edgar Allan Poe, and it's in North Hollywood. So if anyone is in the area, please come by. It's pay what you can.
Oh,
Poe
that's
what you can. That's
pull what
what,
you
yeah,
can. That's
Poe
cute.
what you can. So yeah, it's Saturday, November the 18th at a theater called Loft Ensemble in North Hollywood. They gave us a home, so I'm very grateful for that. And otherwise, you know how it is, Snow, because you are an actress. You work with actresses and actors. You know we're all guns for hire. We're just always trying to get the next gig. You know how it is.
It's true. So, my big question for you is how long does it run? November 18th? Is it
Oh
just
yeah,
the one night only?
it's just the one night. Yeah,
Okay. Okay. I just
it's
want to
just the
make
one
sure
night.
so that when I put this up, I can say one night only. Make sure you check it
Thank
out.
you. I
Okay.
appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank
Very
you.
cool.
Thank you. And the Snow, how about you? What do you have to plug?
Oh, my plugs are later, but no, I'm just always
Okay.
here.
Yeah,
um,
how often do you do this for your fans?
so I've been doing the podcast since May, I believe. I started it.
Oh, just this last
Um,
May.
it's
Okay.
really recent. But I've been it's more like as soon as I find the connection and somebody who's ready to interview.
Yeah.
It's hard to get people to interview when you don't have like I don't have any other people that are in podcasts, so to speak. Like I don't have any other people that are big.
Oh,
I listen to people that I am inspired by, but
sure.
um yeah, I just one day I was just like, let me try this as a podcast. And I've just been enjoying it. I think more because one, I feel like it's therapeutic to be able to share your own stories.
Sure.
I feel like there's always that person that knows all your stories, but when you find the person who doesn't, it's therapeutic because you can let that
Yeah.
go again, you know?
Hmm.
Sometimes you need to just kind of get through the story. And I think that's kind of what drew me into this. It was talking to a few friends who said that they'd have little weird things happening to them here and there, and I'm like, really? And I'm like, let's
Yeah.
talk, you know? And then I
Right.
realized that's enough for a podcast. I want to see where you and I are similar. And I have friends of all walks of life.
Yeah.
Um, if you haven't figured that out by now.
Yeah.
um, and it just, yeah, I think a lot more people are just as curious as me. So why not open up the floor for different stories? Anything that's mystical, it's mysterious, it's all amazing to me.
That's fantastic. And so you started this podcast at about the same time you discovered your affinity for the dowsing rod. Is that accurate?
uh Close, yeah.
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 Because
Oh,
you said it was about 6 months ago.
yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah.
Which is about when you started the podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Interesting.
I've yeah, it is interesting. So I've always been really interested into the supernatural and stuff like that. I like ghost hunting and like stuff like that. But
Nice.
and recently doing more of that on my own as far as just like some small little investigations here and there. But I do I feel like the podcast has been in its own way I feel like it again, like because it's been helping other people kind of open themselves up, but it's also helped me kind of circulate my thoughts in a
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
And finding people again, like it's not like I haven't met you ever in person. Like
Yeah.
you're new to me, you know? But we
Yeah.
find that connection, and that's what I kind of want from this too. It's people realizing that their differences are not as different as they think, you know?
Yeah. Mhm.
And it's cool. I think it's really cool.
That's awesome. Well, it was a pleasure to be a part of this. This was very cool, Snow.
I am
Thank
so
you.
happy to have you here. I am so
My pleasure.
appreciative of you being here. I'll let you know when this goes up. Um,
Please.
Most likely it'll be up. What's today? Oh, I can most likely have it up tomorrow night, actually. Yeah.
Wow, that's a
Yeah.
turnaround. You are a
Yeah.
pro.
So, well, I've learned the where I like to edit,
Okay.
and I've learned more that in certain conversations, I've gotten so used to it now. I'm not as getting as stuck in
Yeah.
conversation that like my last episode was not edited at all. Like literally is the
Oh.
full interview and I just left it as is because I loved how it was. And I think in this one, I don't think there's any place I need to do a cut either. So if
Okay, good.
anything, I think I'd probably cut it into two.
Oh, wow.
So that it
Okay.
would be, one part one, part two kind of thing. So
Nice.
pretty much it. But yeah, I do love these. I do love doing them. And the more I learn how to speak with people and how to help them bring out their stories, the more fun it is.
I agree. Yeah, this has been a pleasure, Snow. This has been a real joy. Thank you.
No, thank you, Micah. Thank you so much for being with us. So Micah Cover, the magician. Um, Amazing, talented, I'm sure, because he got into the magic castle. Not anybody can.
You should
So
be my agent. Thank you, Snow.
I should be your agent. There we go. That's it. That's
Yeah.
my new job. But yeah, I am so honored to have you here. You literally
Honor's
like
mine.
I know my dad would have loved you. So I love that I got to have you here. So that's cool.
Thank you. And thanks to Thanks to your dad, the memory of your dad. What a cool sounding guy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say goodnight for the moment.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Thank you,
No.
Snow. Thank you to all your listeners.
Thank you, Micah. After speaking with Micah, I realized just how much connection in just the arts and the quote unquote occult actually have so much in common, if that makes sense. I mean, obviously, if you really go back to like the actual history of theater, um, theater was worship to the god Dionysus. And maybe there's some kind of similarity in that, just in the fact that we find ourselves just really being vulnerable when we're on stage, whether it's through theater, magic, singing, anything it may be. And I wonder if that has to do with the fact that, the first idea of theater and of performance was for Dionysus, or recorded, because I do feel like in many cultures, dancing and praising was just normal, right? But I did really enjoy this conversation. I thought that we had a great connection, especially since we had just met. He had a lot to teach even after that, and we did get a chance to go live. I will have the VOD of our live interaction on Twitch as a highlight, and I think you guys will all enjoy that as well. He does show us a few magic tricks, which is really awesome. But yeah, please do me a favor and send Micah some love. That's Micah Cover. Exactly how it sounds is how it's spelled. MCAH Cover, COVER. Look him up. And he has an event coming up in West Hollywood at the Loft. So please check that out. It'll be November 18th. And yeah. Special thanks to Master Sword Music for all the music in my episodes. And of course, I am your host and the producer, Snow. If you want to ever catch me live, I do go live on Twitch a few times a week at twitch.tv/touch_of_snow, SNO. And I will talk to you guys later. Bye.